spend more time at work than at home during the day, at what point does the castle doctrine apply to us in our business as it would in our homes?
Scott, would you turn the mic up a little? They said they couldn't hear you.
Is that better? Can you hear me now? All right, everybody's nodding.
I think everybody's concerned with this issue, the pending SB 354, which allows unpermitted firearms to be carried in your vehicle. Before that, it was you had to have a permit to carry them in your vehicle. However, Alabama's always been an open carry state. You know, now they just clarified the fact that you can carry it openly without, and this is jurisdictional, I'm telling you, but without being harassed by the police just because you have a pistol on your side. I'm a Second Amendment fan. I agree with it. As far as the training goes, the only issue from a law enforcement standpoint that I have is if you haven't received that level of training that we have or that we have in the military, and you're not real sure how you're going to react when your adrenaline level, when you go from normal heart rate of 65 or 70 up to 210, your finite motor skills go away. So you have to rely on that training. That's the only issue that I have, and based on that, I have a plan that I developed in 2012. It's in a draft form now, but it would allow for the sheriff's office to conduct training for the citizens of the county. You simply apply. Of course, you have to have, your criminal record checked. We're not going to allow, felons out on our training range for obvious reasons. And it would be good for first-time firearm owners and or, no offense, but for you ladies that have never, operated a handgun. So I'm an advocate of Second Amendment rights. The mental illness issue, they ask you when you fill out that ATF paperwork when you purchase a firearm, have you ever been treated for mental illness? Now, criminals are not going to, more times than not, they're not going to say, sure I have, because they know they get rejected. As far as pistol permits go, I don't think it's a law enforcement safety issue. If your guys are trained and diligent in their duties, pistol permit's not going to save, a piece of paper is not going to save your life as law enforcement. You got to use your own intuition and your own training. And we will be at the forefront of training our deputies as your sheriff. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. That if you need to use that full 5 minutes, help yourself.
Well, number one, as your sheriff, I'm 100% pro Second Amendment. I believe if you can legally possess and own a firearm, you should have that because that is your right. It's not a privilege. The Constitution stated years and years ago that is our right to possess a firearm. And I believe as a business owner, you also have that legal right to protect your property and your business. Now, you have the same obligation as we do as law enforcement. If you're going to use deadly force, you have to be justified. There's no difference between law enforcement and a plain citizen using deadly force. You have to be justified. You have to be in fear of your life. With the new law, with the new gun law, it did limit the power of the sheriffs. It stated that every sheriff, if somebody can legally possess and own a firearm and they want a pistol permit and they come to you, then if you deny them for any reason, they can appeal that to the district judge within Cullman County. So it did limit the sheriff's power over issuing pistol permits. But I think as business owners, again, you have that right to protect your interests and your homes. I mean, if you're at your pharmacy and two bad guys come in that are armed, you have the legal right to protect not only yourself, but your employees and all the citizens that are inside your business. But as your sheriff, I will reinstate a Citizens Academy. That part of that Citizens Academy will offer citizens the training to handle firearms and to handle those situations. I will take you through every step of law enforcement and through the sheriff's office that will assist you in knowing how to use that firearm and what your legal right is as far as you're protecting yourself. And I will advocate all the business owners in each community and every citizen to be part of that academy and that training that we will establish at the Cullman County Sheriff's Office.
Tim, if you don't mind, while he's up, if you'll come back up, I guess I have one question that didn't make it into this, since we got a little time. Nowadays, with HIPAA policies and everything, when you go to the doctor and that kind of thing, a couple of things that I was looking at when I was studying up on this question in the mental health. What can you do as a sheriff to really get that information? And is it made available to you, or do the HIPAA guidelines come into play with that? Or do you have to get that information from, say, a school, or how do you go about that?
If we get indications that there's a person trying to get a pistol permit, if you know, without going into detail, we can find that information out from a probate judge. That's why you need that relationship with all the supporting agencies in the county. And if we get an inclination of that and we want those actual records, we can subpoena those records. That's not a big issue. That's what.
But that is a subpoena that would be required just for that candidate and a physical.
Well, for certain records, yes. You know, we may call down to the probate office and say, hey, have y'all ever dealt with this guy? And if they say yes, then that gives us reasonable suspicion or protocol. If this guy's pushing for a permit, we can deny it. But if he's pushing for a permit, then we can, at that point, go subpoena the records and legally obtain them and say, sir, we got these legally, and this is why we're not giving you a permit.
Yeah, I mean, again, we have systems. It's a check and balance to find out not only like who's convicted felons, who's been convicted of domestic violence and these other issues, but the mental issues, who's been deemed mentally incompetent. You know, and we can go through, like Tim said, those subpoena powers and the computer systems that we have available to check those records. You know, on each person that comes up and wants a pistol permit. Now, from what I'm hearing from the open carry groups that we have met with, most of them are not opposed to pistol permit. For them, what we're seeing is they're wanting to use that pistol permit to carry from state to state to state. Because under constitutional law, let's say you don't have to have a pistol permit here in Alabama. You can carry one anywhere you want, and that's great and wonderful. But what they're worried about is going, hey, if we go into Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, these other states that will require them to have a pistol permit from the sheriff of their county. So that's something that you also have to look in as a sheriff of Cullman County is what a citizen that's wanting to protect themselves if they go into another state with that permit.
And let me follow up on that. You can go on the NRA website and they'll show you the various states, what kind of compact they have with pistol permits in Alabama. For the most part, the southeastern states will honor the permit from Alabama and vice versa. But there's some places like, you know, New York City, for instance, which that's a municipal ordinance. You don't want to get caught carrying with a pistol permit a firearm in New York City.
When it comes to funding the sheriff's office and the little projects that you have, is the fee for the pistol permit where you think it needs to be, or do you have the right to adjust that as a revenue stream for the sheriff's office?
It is up to the discretion of the sheriff. Like, I know other counties, they may be $25, but it's a hard pistol permit with your picture on it. Some counties, Jefferson County, is $10. So it is at the sole discretion of the sheriff how much that permit is. I think Rick Harris over in Winston County, I think he did a special for 5 years, maybe $10 or something for all his citizens after the new gun law came into effect. So it's at the discretion of the sheriff.
Personally, if I'm the sheriff, I'm an advocate of not charging a fee because it's your constitutional right. I would like to see, you know, the fee would be to cover the actual card and maybe the lamination. And then if you wanted to donate money to the sheriff's office through that fund, we could put it in that fund and write your receipt for it. The reason the Sheriff's Association are so adamant about this SB 354, obviously, I talked to ex-Sheriff Roden about 2 weeks ago and asked him what our annual pistol permit revenue was while he was a sheriff, and it was around $200,000 a year. So you figure someplace like Cullman County could be around, you know, maybe $1 million a year. So that's their sticking point, is they're going to lose that discretionary money that's generated by the pistol permits.
All right. Question 3. And like I said, use your full 5 minutes. I think they're timing you. If you need 5 apiece, I'd be glad to give you. Looking at Dodge City 2030, our goal is to become a major player in recruiting more housing, retailers, and industry. In our Dodge City Merchants Group meetings, the challenge to our members is to think bigger. We know there will always be crime, drugs, car wrecks, and natural disasters that just happens. As we actively plan our future, our goal would be to reduce the reaction times to situations and shift our weight to a more preventative approach. Dodge City wants to know or have a known presence so that its residents, tours, and our customers feel they are safe and secure while they're in Dodge City. I want to challenge you right now to think bigger and tell me how you would plan not just to fight crime, but prevent crime here in Dodge City and have that very large presence. If you need the Dodge City Merchants Group's help, or even help from the mayor and its council, this is your chance to ask for it.
Well, again, as your sheriff, I think you have to take a proactive approach to law enforcement. One of the first steps is by educating and training every one of your deputies. You have to be proactive, not reactive, and you have to be visual and committed to the areas that you are patrolling day in and day out. As your sheriff, one of the things that we will do with every deputy, because as it stands today, you have about 5 deputies that cover your area. We will train them to meet with the merchants and start at small crimes, from bad checks, working day in and day out with y'all on bad checks, and the smaller crimes that you will start to face as business owners. Even the pharmacies for prescription forgeries, those issues. But we have to look, and we have to have the supervision that will come in and educate their deputies to when crimes happen so they can be more proactive and address those crimes. We know most residential burglaries will take place during the day. So that's because people are not at home. We know that most commercial burglaries will happen at night. When you have a location like Dodge City that's close to the interstate, you're going to have these guys traveling from Huntsville to Birmingham. They're going to be doing what we call smash and grabs. They're going to be hitting your businesses, hitting them very quickly to get out and hit the interstate and be gone. One of the things we will do is our deputies will be trained to have communications with other law enforcement agencies north and south of our county. So when a crime does happen, we have a quick response from all personnel as far as law enforcement goes to react to that crime. But the deputies will also be trained to cover those areas in a diligent manner during the peak times of those crimes. An example of that would be a pharmacy burglary. And I use that because we've had multiple pharmacy burglaries in this area. We know a certain amount of time those are going to happen. So we have to be vigilant as law enforcement officers within these areas to maintain accountability for those businesses and to protect our leaders' rights and the citizens' their property while we're on duty. So.
2030, Dodge City. I'm looking at a deputy right now that's the only town deputy signed Dodge City, full-time in Dodge City. David Dunn can't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it is a numbers game to some extent. When your population increases, like Matt said, your crime is going to increase. There's no way around that. We have to look for more innovative ways to fight crime. Part of that is through what the sheriff's office has now is a CAD system, computer-aided dispatch. you have the ability as administrators to track and project crime based on historical data that you pull off of that CAD. When he said residential burglaries happen during the daytime, that information is readily available if you have the staff and the personnel to take the time to do that. We implemented a program called CrimeNet a couple of years ago, where the sheriff's office, we actually tracked data through the CAD system. We were better able to deploy our resources into those areas during the times and dates when crime was happening, and we made an impact. But we will need more numbers. I have a plan in place that will, and has worked in other jurisdictions, to generate more discretionary funds through the drug interdiction unit, the interstate drug interdiction unit. That way we will be able to pull more line item money from the actual budget and increase our numbers. We've looked at several ways to do that. Dodge City, by 2030, will probably have a population hopefully around 10,000 people, if the trend goes.
You are thinking big, thank you.
I mean, really, and with 10,000 people, it's going to take more than one deputy full-time in Dodge City. I would like to also see in the smaller communities, once they continue to grow, I know this is more of a nuisance for the public in most cases, but when you have a traffic accident on a county road and you have to wait an hour and a half for a trooper to show up, they're spread out way thin. There's no reason why deputies can't work a traffic accident if they're properly trained and equipped. So we're looking at implementing some of those programs as early as mid-2015, if I'm sure. That's all I have.
When the sheriff works with the different communities, whether it's Bayleton, Dodge City, Paintsville, Good Hope, to get deputies in that area, how much of that funding would come straight from the sheriff's office and the county commission? And how much do they sometimes seek the help of the communities in getting those deputies in that area?
Well, in most cases, the way I understand it, when I left the sheriff's office, we had the community deputy program, or the town deputy program. The town would provide a vehicle every 3 or 4 years and half the deputy's salary, which I don't think that half the salary included the benefit package, like the retirement matching that the county has to do. But with the sheriff's office, with the program that I'm looking at, the Interstate Drug Interdiction Program, which, by the way, has had great success in Tuscaloosa County and Hoover PD. There's several other agencies. With that, you take that discretionary money and move it into the equipment area. You don't have to line item that budgetarily. So, having said that, if Dodge City needed 5 more deputies, but they didn't have to purchase the cars for those deputies, it'd be more affordable.
And I think you have to look at alternative methods to fund those positions. And what I mean by that, you have a lot of retired law enforcement officers that may come in to the community that says, hey, I would like to work part-time in a community. Well, they can only make $23,000 a year. So using discretionary funds, which the sheriff's office has 5 discretionary funds, using those, you can provide, at least right now, part-time extra patrols within those communities. If you have a town that's willing to buy a patrol car, then as a sheriff, you can look at the deputies that are retired or other law enforcement officers and bring those guys in for a small amount on salary-wise to add extra protection for the citizens within those communities. I know in January of 11, when I left the sheriff's office to take the job where I'm at now, I think at that time we had 4 communities that had deputies within the communities. We had Dodge City, Good Hope, Holly Pond, and half of and Fairview. I think at this time we only have 2. And And so I think that's some issues, like you said, as these towns are growing, we have to address that manpower issue, and as a sheriff in the county, work with the county commissioners on how we're going to fund that. But we have to look at the discretionary accounts and what we can utilize with the people that we have in the community. I mean, you have a lot of guys that may be retired from other agencies. I know there are guys from Birmingham, Jefferson County, that would love to work part-time in the community, continuing to work with the sheriff's office to provide that security for their communities. And so I think that's something as a sheriff you have to look at and work towards for each one of our communities.
Go ahead.
I think a revitalization of the sheriff's office reserve program is kind of parallel with what Matt said. That needs to be looked at and reevaluated. You know, to affect arrest, you have to be certified, and if you have retired folks in your community that are willing to come and volunteer their time as a reserve on weekends or special occasions, we should utilize those guys. But keep in mind, if a guy worked in Montgomery for 25 years and he comes to work in Cullman County, you may have to spend a little time with him. And the reason I say that, I've worked with guys from Montgomery, Birmingham, places, and the way of doing things is a little more aggressive. So that's something we have to look at.
Appreciate it. That gets our 3 questions for the sheriff candidates, and if everybody's interested, I think everybody, we had a little discussion earlier tonight and or previous days, but if y'all are comfortable with staying after we do our questions and you guys want to be a part of it, I mean, we'd be happy to open up the floor to any of you that may have some concerns as well and want to be a part in some active discussion. So, in any case, you guys ready? All right. Who wants to go first? We'll let the young guy go first. All right, question 1 for State Representative, District 12. Dodge City is within only a few short miles of Cullman's major industrial parks and numerous major industries. People who look at moving to new towns, they often look at education being at the top consideration in relocating. Cullman County now has 11 recognized cities or towns in which you can reside. The Dodge City Merchants Group has been envisioning Dodge City 2030. And to compete against other municipalities, we feel an education system for Dodge City is a top-tier priority. Including Dodge City, Colony is the only other who does not offer public schooling to its residents. As State Representative of District 12, would you lead the charge to build schools right here in Dodge City? And in order to cut past the hurdles of funding those schools, would you be in favor of adding Alabama to the other 43 states that would allow for a lottery?
I think that the Dodge City School is going to, you're going to have a lot of growing to do, but I think that should be left up to the municipality to have that. And then if I'm your legislator, I'll do my best to help you if you come to me and say, this is what I want to do. As far as the state lottery, I feel that, put it out in the hands of the people and leave it up to them in a vote, and let the people have their choice on what they want to do there.
One of the things about the, first of all, thank you for doing this. You all, I've lived in larger towns outside of the county who don't have a merchants association. So you all doing this for your merchants is really going to make a difference. To get not just this event, but having the association and coming together to try to work together for things. The school issue would be first of all, would be a county school board issue. County school board right now deals with problems on criticisms about closing schools, and there's a lot of talk about do the schools need to be consolidated. So I think very honestly, there would be a pretty big jump before you could see a school in Dodge City. The population growth would have to be there for sure. But if it came up that the community wanted to push for that, and the County Board of Education wanted to take that up, I would certainly be supportive of what y'all want to do.